This is Chosen PLLC. Welcome to Clinician Conversations, where mental health professionals talk about how they cope with navigating life challenges.
Welcome to Clinician Conversations. My name is Laurel. I'm a licensed professional counselor here at Chosen PLLC, and I'd like everybody to go around and introduce themselves, and then we'll get into the topic for today.
I am Jill Chastain, licensed professional therapist.
I'm Benjamin Stibbs. I'm also a licensed professional counselor.
Devin.
I am Devin Willis. I am a doctoral temporary limited licensed psychologist and intern therapist at Chelsea.
And I am Dr. Leatrice Brooks, licensed psychologist.
And today, here in Southwest Michigan, it's about, I would say, maybe mid-spring. And I don't know, the topic for today is slowing down and really kind of being present with the time of year because it gets so busy, I feel like. I mean, I've heard that every year. It just seems like maybe April, May through late August, I'll have people say that they just feel like time speeds up and where did it go? And then all of a sudden it's back to school where the leaves are kind of turning. So I kind of find that sad because I think all the seasons we can enjoy, but especially this time of year, it is so busy. But how could we kind of be enjoying it as we are out more because the sun is out more and there's more activities to kind of, have that enjoyment this time of year.
It's interesting that we're talking about this today because one of the things that I don't know that I have ever actually paid attention to it before prior to this week, but I was driving the other day and I was thinking about like the changes in the weather because it's all over the place, right? Like it's 70 today, it could be snow tomorrow. That's our life. And I was noticing the trees coming back to life.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, nobody talks about that, right? It's like we go from summer into fall and everybody's very aware of all the trees, the colors of the trees, the leaves changing, they're all falling. People got to do this bulk pickup, leaf pickup and all of that. But I'm like, nobody talks about what the transition of the seasons looks like and like paying attention to what's happening in nature. Or like this week, I was really very aware of birds. I know birds are starting to come back around, and I was like, oh, this bird is excited to be here because it was just, chirping and just so loud. And I was like, I don't feel like I have ever, prior to this week, just really paid attention to that, slow down enough to notice all of the different things that happen, and then also like the being grateful for it. Like how amazing is that a tree hibernates in the winter and then it just wakes back up and like, hey, let's do it.
Yeah, spring is actually one of my favorite seasons because it is beautiful just seeing everything come back to life. And I often use the trees as an analogy when I'm working with some of my clients because we talk about how those seasons in life where we feel like we're in a wilderness and dry and nothing's happening. And in the wintertime, how the trees look lifeless, look like they're dead. But then there's a whole process that's going on in the root of a tree, in the trunk of a tree during the wintertime, and so that it can bloom in the spring. So I love spring.
Well, I know summer gets really crazy busy with, I have a daughter and stuff, so she has summer activities, and then there's trips to the in-laws and all these other things that can really build up very fast. And I know my wife and I are really intentional about keeping spaces between weekends, so it's not every weekend that we're going out or doing other things, so we can actually spend some time like maybe going to the air zoo or going to the zoo just for family time, because quickly things can get just consumed by, oh, we want to do this, or I want to do this, and people are asking for your time a lot usually, especially during summer.
Yeah.
No, I like to put up little boundaries and things against some of that stuff ahead of time.
Yeah, I think we probably try to pack it all in because we know, the weather is not, it's only going to last for so long. So we just try to pack it in,
Yeah.
but missing those key moments like Dr. Brooks was saying and Laurel was mentioning.
I was thinking about that as Benjamin was talking, what you just said, Jill. I feel like a lot of times, and this is probably also prevents us from being in the moment, is we, especially being here in the Midwest where we have all 4 seasons, we sometimes live in a deficit model,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like
Yeah.
we feel like we have been deprived. The whole winter we have been gypped of
Yes.
living life. We don't even plan anything at all in the winter. It's like after Christmas, it's a wrap. We hibernating until, and we got an attitude about it. And then we plan life as if we can only live life when the weather is nice outside.
3
When
months.
when the sun is out, and so we plan for all of that stuff, and we want to cram everything in. Like one of the things that I said before to people, like I get it, fine, you want to go and watch movies, that's great. You can watch movies at the theater in the winter. It's inside, like like there are some things that we do, and we might highlight them in the summer, but those are great winter activities to do. So how can I be present with this time to actually enjoy the time versus getting to the end of the summer and all you have is to be able to say a list of what you did when you weren't even really there. I was
Yeah.
watching something not too long ago, and what they said was that, nowadays people are doing everybody's doing TikToks. And I don't know nothing about TikTok, but everybody's doing TikTok and social media and all of that. And they were saying that there are certain places where people will not even go if they can't do a TikTok about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you
I
tell
heard
them you are
that.
not able to post this experience on social media, they won't even go. And to me, that says something about the ability to be present in that place and just slow down and be there versus I'm going because I want to be able to say that I went or because I want to say that I had that experience. But did you really have the experience
Right.
if we're moving so fast through it?
Mm-hmm. And if we're
Yeah.
taking pictures, it's more, especially out in nature, it's more like we're at the zoo taking pictures of things. We're not immersed and part of it and sitting under the tree instead of just kind of noticing it. Let's take a couple pictures and moving on type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And one thing I like about fall and winter is I actually find with it feeling more slow, it's easier to be present. So that might feel like a lack to someone, but I feel like there's kind of more of a slowness and maybe a permission that we feel to be slow and drink that coffee or hot chocolate or sit in front of the fire. And this time of year, especially visually, it's hard for me even to sit outside and I'll sit down and, I'm enjoying the sun, but I'm looking at that the lawn needs to be mowed, the garden, all of that. And it's hard to remember, okay, let's just kind of enjoy this at least for a while.
Yeah.
Something is clicking for me as you're talking is if there's something about like fall and winter that gives us permission to be slower, that may be why we have so much emotional intensity around it, because we're actually feeling in the winter and summer because we have slowed down versus the actual feeling in the spring and summer, which is usually it's more like that immediate gratification rush type of emotional experience, which is really not an emotional experience, just like a high versus the actual feeling and taking it in, which we're talking about. And that said, I wonder what it would be like for us mentally, emotionally, if we were to do that on a more consistent basis.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah.
Versus I'm gonna get a high and then I'm just gonna be depressed for a couple months
Exactly.
or for a couple seasons,
I think the last time I actually noticed it is when COVID, when COVID was here, and then when everything was on lockdown in the spring. It was the spring, and I remember going out walking in my neighborhood, and I was actually seeing people, and I walked that neighborhood all the time. I was actually seeing people out, like playing with their kids, or just a bunch of people walking and just talking and taking time to speak to each other, and as fathers in the yard with their kids building stuff. And I'm like, that part was not COVID, but that part was beautiful to see people. I mean, we had to slow down, but to actually slow down and really like be present with each other, with with the people that they love.
Yeah, that's when I started doing all the kite flying too, was during the COVID season, going over to the air zoo. They got this beautiful, huge like field right by the airport, and it was a great time to just kind of relax and be away from people, but also have, fun, just kind of being present and watching the wind take a kite and fly it around. It was kind of fun. So maybe, and that's, I think, one of the things in summer that we probably should do more of is choosing activities that are slower and more reflective and contemplative too, instead of, I mean, you can still go to, Six Flags and go on all the rides that are going to make you sick and give you the adrenaline high, but, maybe go by a river and watch, read a book by a river, or do kite flying, or take a nice stroll, on a trail somewhere. Although I'm wondering if people sometimes are just going so fast because they're, if they slow down, certain thoughts and things will catch up to them,
There,
and they're
there you
actually
go.
kind of they're just going, and I'm trying to avoid
There you
things.
go. Yes.
So,
I was thinking about fishing. You'd mentioned water. And I was thinking about fishing because typically it's not about fishing. I've heard people say if they are in a space where they can be with their thoughts.
Yeah.
I'm reminded of, and then I'm going to ask you what your thoughts are, Devin. I'm going to invite you into the conversation. But I remember last year, Devin and I did a beach day, and we went to a state park. And I mean, we were there, at least like 8 to 10 hours just there. Like, we got out, they have sand dunes. And so we walked up the sand dunes. We sat on the top of the sand dunes for a few hours. And then we came down and walked around, and we sat by the water for a few hours. We ate, they have food trucks there. So we did that. Like, it was just a really nice, I'm like, I don't know if I've ever just been at the beach that long. But it was good. It was a beautiful day just to be, with nature and thoughts and watching other people. And, it was just great.
Yeah, I can hop in. I noticed I was sitting here wrestling with like, what does this presence thing look like for me? And I noticed like sometimes I do compartmentalize, like when I'm operating in like a cognitive space, like in my thoughts, like I'm not, and I'm like, it's like present in the conversation. I tend to
Pause for a second. Laurel, something's coming in on your sound that's blocking hers.
Okay.
Cause
I have no idea what it is.
that's why you keep turning. You can't see that you're purple.
I can mute myself.
Let's do that while she's talking, and then you might have to just unmute when you pop in.
Okay. I'm having a hard time bringing my screen up to mute. Is there a thing at the top of my mic I can?
Okay, thank you. Okay, go ahead, Devin.
Yeah.
So did you hear any of that I said?
Ish.
Repeat
said
the whole
when you're in
thing,
the-
because we heard a little bit.
When you're in the cognitive space, and then you
Yeah.
talked about compartmentalizing.
Yeah, I was saying I was sitting and thinking about like during this conversation, like what presence looks like for me. And I think I noticed that sometimes it can look like me being, I guess it can look similar. So me being more reserved, like when I'm just taking in like what's going on around me. So like in this conversation, just taking in what you all's experiences are. But then like when operating in a more in my cognitive self, that's when I'm like least present and kind of removed. But thinking about back to the beach day and the opportunity to connect with nature, I did notice that it's something about for me like being around water that kind of brings me into the present moment. it just kind of, yeah, I think it's like maybe the sounds, like the motion, it just kind of brings you into like being conscious of like what's going on right now. So yeah, I would say I definitely enjoyed that day, and that's a good external prompt for bringing you to the present moment, being in nature for sure.
Yes,
And I think
absolutely.
that's important what you just said about having external prompts. Like if we think about what am I going to do? How can I be intentional to be more present, and to take in the environment and take in the here and now and what's happening, is what are some external prompts for me to do that? Because I know like for me with going, because I like water too, and I plan it because I know that I need it. And I don't mind driving 45 minutes to an hour for it because I know that that's something that I need. And so again, what are those external prompts that remind us to do those things, to just kind of slow down and be?
Yeah, yeah. So relaxing.
Mhm.
I like to use the five senses too. And because this time of year is so busy, focus on one and kind of see what maybe I can hear instead of just being, the vision and visual this time of year. That kind of helps kind of narrow it down.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's right. Because I rely so much on hearing that it's usually I have to shut my ears off and try to actually look since I'm
Yeah.
visually impaired. So I'm constantly
Mm.
hearing the birds and the wind and the cars and all this kind. It's a fairly overloading kind of experience a lot of times. So being able to try to shut that off is
Mhm.
always interesting too, and just to look at stuff because I actually notice like when the texture of the trees change in spring because I see all the little buds and it looks like this pixelated effect on the trees. So I always tell my wife, "Oh look, the buds on the trees, they're going crazy and such." So I usually do notice those like little spring kind of
Yeah.
changes, and it's like, yay, spring's coming back. So, but yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. You brought up a good point, Benjamin, a few moments ago in regards to how sometimes people may not want to slow down. It's that busyness that you can kind of block those unwanted thoughts out, or those issues that you don't want to deal with, or those
Hmm.
thoughts. And being busy is a way to what do you call it's the word I want to use. You can
Avoid.
avoid. You can
Yes.
definitely
Yeah.
avoid that,
Mhm.
Well,
the
and you can
bus.
fit in with all the other people that are also,
Mm,
I'm so
Mhm.
busy. Oh my goodness,
mm,
kind of thing.
mhm.
Because that's almost like a badge of courage and
It
honor. Because
is.
Right.
if you're busy, you're
Yeah.
important. Therefore, that's
Yep.
good, which is all
Yeah.
sorts of messed up.
Yeah. And I had one of my mentors said a long time ago, it's not so much about being busy, it's about being productive.
Mm,
So all
Mhm.
that busyness, but it's definitely productive. You need
yeah,
you need
yeah, a
that.
hamster on a hamster wheel is busy, but it's
Yeah.
getting nowhere. So it's wasted energy.
When you talk about, the busyness keeping us from dealing with some things or causing us to avoid, it reminds me of the slump that we see sometimes in the summer when it comes to therapy, right? The weather starts
Mhm.
to lighten up. People are like, yes, the weather is
Bye.
great. That is going to fix all of my problems. And then, caseloads start to clear out a bit. And then usually 3 to 4 weeks later, people are like, oh no, I still got problems. Like, I still need to talk about stuff.
Yes.
Life is still happening. And so, how can we slow down enough to just like, it's okay to still, the weather is not going to fix everything for
Mhm.
us. It might help a little bit because it's an external something that pulls us into a different space, but it also, we can't allow it to dictate how it is that we feel, to make
Yes.
us feel different ways in different seasons, or allow the busyness of everybody to cause us to then start ignoring things that we really know are important to us and need our attention. So just kind of slowing
Mhm.
down enough to, like that self-awareness piece. What is happening with me? What do I need? And not allowing some external factors to try to guide that or direct it for
Yes,
me.
Absolutely. What came up for me when you said that was social media. Because, looking at these, this person is here and it seems like everyone's on a vacation. So I need to do this, or I need to be somewhere. Or
Mhm.
And
that
I have to look good while I'm doing it and look like I'm having a great time. Yeah.
Exactly.
Knowing good and
Exactly.
well you want to be at home.
Right.
Mhm.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I think we're wrapping up. So if you have any comments, you can put them, to let us know what you think about topics that you might be interested in. And thanks for listening. We'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Bye.